It is the OG plane type that's debuted all the way back from the days where it all began in Meteorot 1. It is PLN00 Ladyjet, with a kit of Fight Boost, Double Anti-Air, Flight Legs, and the leg ability of Premacy, which reduces incoming damage if the incoming attacker has the same leg type as the user. Now, Ladyjet is part of a set of 3, with the inclusion of Blue Submarine and Land Motor, the latter of which we've had for a pretty decent amount of time now, Blue Submarine debuting about the same time she did. But all the same, even if they are all packing relatively niche skills across the board, if used in the right hands, can be absolutely catastrophic all the same. In Ladyjet's case, Fight Boost is a support-based skill that, once activated, will buff all melee damage of herself and her allies, or any allies that are using melee-based skills, by about 20 or 30% or so, as long as that buff remains active. Right and left arm of anti-air are skills that we of course have seen before countless times, so they are nothing new, but in this case, for the sake of explaining it, when used and when attacking any foe on the regular, it will deal relatively nominal or negligible damage at base, but if you are damaging someone that is using flight-based legs, this includes Ladyjet herself, Crimson King, or even someone of the like, it will deal up to 5 times or even more punish damage as a modifier on top of whatever you were going to deal before. Now, Flight Legs do also give Ladyjet very solid mobility across most terrains pretty well, and is of course very fitting of her name and her motif. But across the board, she is moderately squishy, kind of as you'd expect of most standard female bots, especially of her caliber. With head HP of about 3250, arms at about 2500 each, and legs at about 3050 as well. For the HP means she's not too bad in terms of HP, but she is definitely going to be very squishy when it comes to tanking damage or trying to tank damage and keep it on the low. On the topic of damage reduction, her melee resist at 730 and her shoot resist of 539 are honestly not all that great, which means pretty much from all sides, from both melee and shooting, she is going to be taking a pretty considerable amount of punish damage because her legs just don't have the armor or the ability to reduce damage as efficiently as most other leg types in this case. But of course, in trade of that, she is packing a mobility of about 923 and an evade at about 1967, almost 2000 in this case, which is par for the course for flight-based legs like what she comes packed with, which kind of does tie it all back to a point. Now, the Premacy leg ability does kind of save her to a degree, given that the damage reduction is only applied, however, when she is fighting anyone using flight-based legs. But in all other cases, that damage reduction really is not going to save her. Now, Ladyjet, much like Land Motor and Blue Submarine, is also capable of meta change into a plane-based form, that of her motif, and in this form she exchanges her kit out for a more conventional auxiliary support more than a dedicated fighter. In this case, a Drive A of Break Hammer is a gravity attribute skill that when used will grant punish damage relative to the number of heavy parts that the enemy has equipped. So of course, 2 or more, you'll be dealing a lot of punish damage. 1 or none, not as much. Fight Boost is a support-based skill very similar to what she had before in her robot mode, that when used, of course, about 20 to 30% damage bonus for all melee damage of herself and her allies. And Mobile Boost is a support-based skill that once activated, will also boost the mobility of herself and her allies by about 20 to 30% as well, as long as the buff remains active. While in this form, though, she does also maintain her flight legs and her Premacy leg ability, which means she can shift back and forth between this form and robot mode pretty consistently and conveniently because none of her shifts require charge to use, and that does give her just a little bit more flexibility while on the field. Now, in this form, however, this is going to be her more conventional and more consistent form of her overall performance on the field. Given that she's packing 1083 for her mobility, so it does go up. Her evade does go up just a little bit, about 100 points, just shy of about 100 points or so. So it's now sitting at about 2048. But with a melee resist of 1141 and a shoot resist of 919, this is much, much better. Which means while in this form, while she's curled up, this will give her a much better and overall form, more consistent form of base incoming damage reduction before Premacy has the chance to kick in. That being said, as a pure set score, I do honestly have to grade Ladyjet about a 6 out of 10 across the board. Kind of, much like with Land Motor and Blue Submarine, I do honestly have to grade Ladyjet as kind of a middle of the road, middle ground kind of fighter, as someone who focuses more on support or auxiliary combat between brake hammer and anti-air more than actual dedicated combat of that of a nuker. As mixed parts, I do have to rate her equally at a 6 out of 10, given that even though you are sacrificing fight boost and mobile boost and brake hammer, to a point you actually are not sacrificing mobile fight boost, because she already has it in base robot mode, so you really aren't missing out on that. The flight legs and the Premacy leg abilities stay, so there really isn't anything lost there either. Plus, anti-air for females is kind of rare. Not to say that it's like a super rare item or a once-in-a-lifetime thing, but it is still something that would be good to have just for the sake of having it in the library if you do find yourself in need of having to use anti-air parts on a female team.